So I have some thoughts that I want to share with you today. By the way, just a little about me. I've been married to my high school sweetheart for about 100 years. Actually, 47. That's a long time to be in love with somebody. And I'm crazy about him. He still makes my heart pitter-patter, and I still send him sneaky little texts and all of that, and just tell him I love him for his coffee. But he's pretty great. He's pretty fantastic. And I met him, I was 15 years old, so that was a very long time ago. Our first date was 50 years ago, just back in February. So I took him back in all the places where I skipped out of school for the very first time. Why did I do that? He was just so cute. I said, yes, I will skip out of class today. I'm so sorry. And then I started to date him, and the rest is history. And he went on to become a dentist. And after 10 years of dentistry, we felt the call of God to lay dentistry down and to plant a church in Vancouver, which we're both born and raised in Vancouver. And that was almost 36 years ago. No regrets. What a life it has been. And 2 years ago, we handed over the leadership of the church to our daughter, who is lead pastor of our church. She and her husband are doing a magnificent job in a very challenging season. But wow, they're doing just beautifully. They have 2 amazing children. I have 8 grandchildren. My youngest grandchild is now 15, and he's 6'4". So that is my life. I have a 25-year-old grandchild and a 15-year-old grandchild and a bunch of them in between. So that's our life. We love church. This is our passion, building church. And even though we have handed on the leadership, we have never been more passionate, and especially in this season of building healthy church, of loving people, establishing God's kingdom here on earth. And so the words that I want to put over this, did I say we have 3 daughters? I told you I feel like I have to tell you, I should show a picture. They're pretty great. But anyhow, or do you just do that when your children are really little? Lisa Bevere comes and just shows her beautiful, Italian sons. But anyhow, I don't know why I said that, but I am going to talk about building an intentional life, and I should teach an intentional message. But I've thought of these words so often lately: thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. And I believe we need to wrap our hearts around those words. Jesus prayed, thy kingdom come, thy will be done. And sometimes you think, what on earth is going on? We've all thought that. This world has gone crazy. And just when you think it can't get crazier, it does. BC was on fire 3 months ago. I drove through fires that just had to get out of Dodge. It was scary stuff. They shut the freeway behind me, and we were going to eat in this particular city. And I said to my daughter, Danica, I think we need to keep going. And it's a good thing we did, because fires were everywhere. The burgers weren't that great. So we just had to keep going and have them somewhere else. And then now that very area and so much more is completely flooded. It's crazy. I have personal friends, and I have a relative that lost their house. They lost 4 of their 7 dogs. I don't know why they have 7 dogs, but they do. And 4 of them perished. And I know people who all of their farm animals are gone. Their house is underwater. This is our reality. So today, as we gather in the Fraser Valley, we have 2 campuses. And in the Fraser Valley, as they gather today, it's not going to be church as usual today. It's going to be gathering food, taking care of them, and we have been serving them and digging mud out of houses. You do what you have to do. So it's been a wild season. And when you think it can't get wilder, it did for us. And yet, here we are, the church, for such a time as this. This does not take God by surprise. He didn't go, oops, you weren't supposed to be born into this. No, we were. And we were born and equipped for such a time to carry his love, his presence, the reality of who he is in this world right now, right here. So yeah, it's been a crazy, chaotic, confusing time. But it's also been very clarifying. Very clarifying. A lot of things that I thought really mattered don't. They just don't matter. I have just eliminated a lot of things from my life that were distractions because they don't matter. It's been a time of great disruption, a lot of discouragement, but it's also been a time of awakening. I feel like if we lean in, we're going to find God's presence so beautifully. And that's not to say this hasn't been hard, and that the just fear hasn't just been screaming at us. But in the middle of it all, there is God who said, I will never leave you. I will never forsake you. There's been a lot of restlessness. I don't know what I believe anymore. I don't know if and I know I'm preaching to the church and I'm preaching to the choir because you're here. And maybe it took everything you had to get here today. I'm not sure. You weren't sure if it could work for you, but you're here. Good for you. And there has been a lot of resistance, but there's also been great resolve, great resilience. We find out we're stronger than we think we are. And God is with us in everything. So much opposition, so much. I felt it very personally, but also I felt so much opportunity. And I just am finding God in ways like I've never experienced him before. And I have walked with him my whole life. I've always been in love with Jesus. I've loved building his church, but never like I do today. It seems to matter more than it's ever mattered. Where a lot of things have been shaken and shaken off, so much beauty is rising out of the ashes. And so my question would be today, how has this tumultuous season been shaping you? And there's no judgment here. No judgment. But be honest with yourself. What actually has been going on in my heart, in my mind, in my life in this season? Where am I? I think sometimes it's really important to just locate yourself and ask yourself some of those hard questions. Mary Oliver wrote the words, what is it you plan to do with your wild and precious life? That question, it's funny how it stirs up. I think, what is it? I'm here for such a time as this. You're here for such a time as this. All in different seasons, different circumstances, but one God leading us, has never left us, will never forsake us, and he's taking us on a journey. And how has this journey been shaping us? What are the things we need to take with us into the future? What are the things we need to let go of? And I know God is extending a beautiful, glorious invitation to every single one of us. Not one of us are exempt from a beautiful invitation. Ephesians 2:10 says in the Passion Translation, we have become his poetry. His recreated people that will fulfill the destiny that he has given each of us. For we are joined to Jesus, not the government. God bless the government, and I pray for our government, but we are not joined to circumstances, to government, to health mandates. We are tied to Jesus. I believe in being, and this isn't a political statement, but I believe that we need to behave well and wear God well as believers. But bottom line is our alliance and our connection is to Jesus. That is the tribe we are a part of. We are Jesus people. Even before we were born, God planned in advance our destiny and the good works we would do to fulfill it. And like I said already, right here, right now, no surprise, none whatsoever. I know I found myself going, just a minute, because for me, it was a massive disruption. John and I have been leading the church for 30-something years, handed on the leadership of the church, passed the baton. It was a beautiful, sacred time of handing on the leadership to our daughter and her husband, and they go into the future, and that was 2 years ago. And then, 18 months ago, however long ago, then we're traveling the world, and John and I were traveling extensively all over the entire globe. And suddenly we realized, well, that trip needs to be canceled, that trip needs to be canceled. Oh, by the way, the whole year needs to be canceled. And so here we are sitting, looking at our lives, looking at our calendar and going, okay, now what? It was a very defining time for me, a time of reflection, a time of learning, a time of being introspective, and coming up against myself. I had to kind of look in the mirror and go, who are you if you're not this? It was so good for me. It was so good for me and so hard for me. It just was, because if you can just keep running, feeling here I am, God is blessing this and we're running, and suddenly everything stops. And I think about Rick Warren's words. I was listening to him. It was probably about a year ago. And I remember him saying these words, everybody thinks we're all in the same boat. He said, no, we're not. We're all in the same storm. But some of us are in a yacht. Some of us are in a raft, a lifeboat, and some of us are just holding on to a piece of driftwood out on the big ocean. And I thought about that, and he said, we are encountering a tsunami of grief. And we need to, as a church, be positioned to walk with people through this season and to move into a future, a hopeful future, and have a life that is intentional, not just living by default and have our lives kind of on pause because, well, we didn't see this coming, and when are we going to be out of this? I don't think things are going to change. We're not going back anymore. I mean, things will change in the future, but we'll never go back to where we were. It's just not going to look the same. But who are we becoming on this journey that we have been in? And I think we are about to discover some of the most beautiful things that God is doing. One of the parts of the script, when I was reading this over the other day, I thought about how it says that he planned in advance. He equipped us as his people. He has designed us, fashioned us for right here, right now. When I thought about equipping, I couldn't help but think about my iPhone. Now, I love my iPhone. I'm probably addicted to it. I don't know if anybody else in the room might be. I always have it close by, and I'm playing Spotify. I'm listening to music, or I'm just have it. But I know this about me and my iPhone. I know very little about what an iPhone actually does. I know a few things that I care about. I can send a text, I can listen to music, I can take a picture, I can check my emails. But other than that, I don't know. I don't play games on it. I'm not that person. Other people know everything their iPhone does. I don't know. I also have a car that has way more equipment than what I use. I can talk to it and it'll do some things for me. I don't know how to do that. And John keeps asking me, why don't you just press this button and tell it to do what you want it to do? And then I try it once and it doesn't work. Forget it. I go back to the old system. Because I'm more comfortable with here than what I need to learn. But I think that's how we so often are in our lives. We don't know what we're equipped to do. We don't know what we're called to do. So we live a small version of the life that God is inviting us to. And we draw back rather than push forward. And if there ever has been a season, I believe, church, to not pull back, not to live small. You don't serve the world by living small. It's a time to live an intentional life and to actually press into those things that are waiting for you to walk in. God has a pathway. He has equipped you. It calls us here, your heaven's poetry. And I believe it's a Voice translation. It says, you are heaven's poetry etched on human lives. What a beautiful declaration of how God has equipped us to bless the world right now. And I pray that we as the church would rise up glorious, beautiful, equipped, ready for whatever. I love hearing about going into places that are suffering a lot right now, but bringing life. And how many young people were there? Like 150. I mean, I know the suicide rate in that area is atrocious. But when life comes and infuses hope, I think, God bless you. Keep going, church. What you're a part of is stunning. And to think of how that can change the life of so many young people and change the narrative. This is time where we can step into moments like that. And thank you for being scared on a plane, but going anyway, because you are going to save the world by doing that. But I have 7 thoughts that I'll share with you. They're not earth-shattering, but I think they're important. And I thought about my life in this last season and what are some things that have really marked me and that I have been very intentional about in this season particularly. Number 1, start with the end in mind. To build an intentional life, start with the end in mind. If you want to be intentional about having a great marriage or family, what can you do? You have to see the end from the beginning. We don't know the final outcome. We don't know all of the details. But if I want to stay married and in love with, and not just married to, because some people are married to, but it ain't pretty. I want to be married to and wildly in love with John Burns. So I'm not looking anywhere else. I'm not hoping for someone else. And I am investing deeply into my marriage. Why? Because I know where I want to go. So 47 years later, after investing, and I haven't stopped investing, we live with a mantra over our life that I have the t-shirt to prove it. And literally, I got it for our anniversary of our 50th date. He came up that day and I said, is that what you're wearing today? He goes, yeah, what's wrong with it? And I said, I have something better for you. He didn't know it was the anniversary of our 50th first date, but Yep, he wore it, and it says, stay amazed. That is we stay amazed. We stay in love, we stay amazed. We don't grow familiar with each other. How do we do that? With intention. You can get familiar with anything, or you can just float on by, but that's not how you build a great life. You build a great life with intention and with discipline and with regard and with focus. And so what happens when I know I have the end in mind, it eliminates a lot of stupid options that would distract me, pull me off course, take me where I really don't want to go. If I want to go, and if I want to hear one day, and I do, well done, good and faithful servant, it eliminates a lot of options that would pull me out of destiny, pull me out of where I want to go. I have to live with intention. And when we know the end from the beginning, not that we have the script. It's not like a GPS system. Take me there, and talking about GPS, but so often we just think, this is how I want to go to where I want to go. This is my plan. I say lay down your plan, follow God's plan, because there is a global positioning system, but there's also a God positioning system. And when he takes you, he knows how to get you. And yeah, there may be setbacks, there may be drawbacks, but he will get you to where you need to go. Start with the end in mind. A great friend of ours, he's a pastor in America, he says this, Paul Cole said this, what a person does becomes history. But what a person puts into motion is legacy. I'm passionate about legacy, and I know this church is too. It is about the generations, because everything I do is affecting the generations. The choices I make don't just affect me, but they are affecting the generations. So teach me, Lord, to number my days, that I will live with a heart of wisdom. And part of wisdom is not doing what's easy, but doing what is right. It has kept me focused on my future, going where I need to go. And that comes out of knowing that every decision is taking me somewhere. Where is that decision taking you? There's so many scriptures that I could mention, but enough to say, I want to say this quickly too. I know I've been saying a lot about taking a look at where we've been to where we want to go. Soren Kierkegaard, who has been someone I've been kind of learning from a lot, he said, life can only be understood backwards, but it must be lived forward. So often we want to go back to the good old days. We're not going back. We can't go back, but we can move forward. So we learn, but we don't stay there. We move forward. We learn from our history. Canada has a big history. Not all of it is beautiful. And we can learn from it. We can't go back. We can't change what's happened, but we can learn to move forward in strength. That would be true of marriages. It would be true of families. It would be true of every church on the planet right now. Nothing is as it once was. However, we can learn so that we can move forward. If we're pining for things as they once were, you have to move off from that. Live with intention, looking at the future, going forward. Number 2, be teachable. The older I get, the more I realize what I don't know. It's just a fact of life. The more you learn, the more there is to learn. The more I know God, the more I know I don't know about God yet, but I'm learning. Every day is the wonder. It's kind of like stay amazed. And what that means is stay teachable. Keep looking, keep learning, keep growing. Whenever we stop, if we ever get to the place where we think, I know, it stunts our growth and development, not only as human beings, but as believers establishing the kingdom of God. We've got work to do, and we need to work together. We need to work collaboratively, and a lot of that is going to take us being teachable. One of the things that I think has been the thing that's built my marriage the most is, John and I could not be more different. He is like type A, and also an introvert, which would shock some of you, because he acts different when he's out around you people. But after COVID, I'm telling you, his introvert comes out beautifully. He is a loner, but he doesn't like to be alone. So just stay here with me, Helen. I know I'm getting out of Dodge, because I am an extrovert, and I love spending time with him, but bye. Have a nice day. I'm going to go visit people. And so we learn different things about each other. But if I just looked at him and said, well, you're wrong. The way you act is wrong. No, it's how he's wired. It's who he is. And we live in a world of different cultures. I love that about Canada. We're so many different cultures. And if there's ever been a time to learn from one another, it's now. We have, the world got complicated. The world got noisy. The world got really opinionated. And boy, did I ever too. And I found myself saying things that I shouldn't have said. Pastor Helen said things like, well, they're idiots. And I said it from the pulpit. And I was shushed and told that that was inappropriate, which it was. I didn't say who it was, but I just said, I think some people are. And maybe you've said that or thought that, possibly, but you're probably way more Christian than I am. But I got called out on that because I didn't understand where everybody was coming from. I just thought, why don't they learn? Why don't they educate themselves? Why don't they? Well, I had an opinion about everything. I would have people over and we'd get, I'm not usually contentious, but I'm a little stubborn. And I thought I was right about some things. And there's a lot of opinions about a lot of things these days. And now it was in my house and it's my brother. I love my brother. But I was looking at him like, guess what I thought he was? And so, and I might have been referring to my beautiful brother who I adore. He's like my favorite person in the world until recently where he's really bothered me a lot. And so finally Johnny said to me, next time you guys are together, can we make an agreement? We're not talking about COVID or about Donald Trump or about vaccines or about, none of you have had any of this going on. I know you haven't, but we did. And John's just like, shh, no more, stop it. And I listened. And so we had to start listening to each other. Do I still agree with what he said? No. Am I right about everything? No. But I am learning. And that is the one thing that I've had to know in this day. I have to remain teachable. The world is all telling you what to believe. I need to find out what God's word says about it. But the goal is not so I'm educated on everything, but so that my heart is right. And a teachable heart is a learning heart, a leaning in heart, rather than a I'm right. And too bad for you, you're wrong. And you're the problem with this world. I thought that. I didn't say it quite like that, but I sure thought it inside. So all of that to say, I've had to grow and learn in this season. Maybe you have too. I'm not sure, but maybe. I think we all have. But I think honestly, in some ways, I feel like God is like, all right, kids, figure it out. Can you just love each other? By this will all men know that you're my family, my disciples, by the way you love each other. Not about what you believe about everything, but how you love one another. That is the banner we wear, is the love of God. And in order to wear that well, we're going to have to remain teachable. We're going to have to. To quote my husband, he says, I know I'm ignorant. Ignorant means I don't know yet. He said, I know I'm ignorant, but I don't want to be stupid. Stupid takes the stance. This is his words. I just blame him for it. Stupid says, I already know or I don't want to know. I'm right. It's time to learn from one another and to listen with more intention, to have the marriages, the families, the life, the intention that we want. We have to live with a teachable spirit. Number 3. Live with expectation. I love the thought of expectation. This is a season that many of us have lowered our expectations. We have just pulled back. And I feel like God is saying, open up, expect the best, believe the best, look for the miracles, look for what God is doing. Don't look at what everything is wrong in the world. Look at what is happening. There are miracles happening everywhere. We see them. We see wondrous things happening in the middle of the chaos. But if you're not looking for them, you're going to miss the miracle. There are miracles happening everywhere. And so I want to encourage you to expect God to use you. Expect God to meet you. Expect God to guide you. Expect God to open up doors that you're like, really, God? I can do that? Yes, go, child, go. For such a time as this, I feel like this is a season for expecting God to show up in dramatic ways. But I know if we're not looking, we're going to miss the miracle, because miracles are happening everywhere. And with that, I just want to close that thought with expect great things, is also expect opposition. Oh, that's not our favorite part, but it goes hand in hand. When God is at work, so is the enemy. but greater is he that is in us than he that is in the world. But if you're getting opposition, it doesn't mean you're out of the will of God. It very likely could mean you're smack dab in the will of God, because the enemy showed up to try to stop you. Keep building, keep going. There's going to be a lot of naysayers like there were with Nehemiah rebuilding the wall. And boy, there's a lot of rebuilding that needs to happen. And there will be people that will distract you and try to pull you out and laugh at you. Just keep going and keep building the wall. Just keep fighting the good fight of faith and see what God will do. Number 4, walk with the wise. I would say one of the greatest gifts that God has given us, all of us, is people to walk with. But you need to walk with wise people. Who is shaping your future? Who is the loudest voice in your ear? In Proverbs 13 and 20, it says, one who walks with the wise becomes wise. But whoever keeps company with fools only hurts himself. Relationships will be core and central to everything, that who you are and who you are becoming. Take a look at the people in your world, because it is a picture of your future. It's a pretty accurate picture of your future. Who has the loudest voice in your heart, in your ears, in your thoughts? Who's talking to you? Be careful who you listen to. If you want to live an intentional life, there's a lot of voices you have to say no to. And that may be your own voice of doubt, your own voice of fear. Who are you listening to? And this is where you have to let faith talk and allow the voice of God to be louder than all of the naysayers and all of the doubters, because God is at work and he is calling us into his holy work. But what you're going to do it with wise people. I am so grateful for the people that have journeyed with me. Not everyone I started with is still there. They aren't. But I didn't stop running just because they did. I'm going to keep going, and I'm going to go with those that God calls us to walk alongside. Who are you walking with, and where are they taking you? It's a good question to ask yourself. And number 5, live authentically. We need honest, true relationships, heartfelt conversations. And I know this church is a church, a leadership that welcomes that. Where we don't have a facade, but we have authentic relationship, true authentic relationship. Brene Brown says authenticity is a collection of choices we have to make every day. It is about the choice to show up and to be real, the choice to be honest, the choice to let our true selves be seen. In my life, there have been many times I didn't want to show up. I wasn't feeling good about myself. I was feeling lost and broken. Maybe something I remember one of the earliest times I recognized that was when one of our daughters was going through a debilitating eating disorder. And I thought, here we are leading a church. I don't know how to show up in this. I feel like I failed. If this is going on in my child's life, I must have failed. It's my fault. And the devil said, yeah, it sure is. But you know what I had great people in my world that came alongside and said, let's talk about it. They didn't judge me, but they welcomed honest conversation. They held me. They walked with me. I could never have got to where I needed to go without authentic relationships. And healthy church, healthy marriage, healthy family requires authenticity. If you're hurting and you feel lost and lonely, tell somebody. Some of you are watching online today, and it's scary to come back in the building. It's okay. We still love you. It's all good. Some of you are in the building, but you feel alone. I want to encourage you. There's a class right afterwards that invites you to journey together. It's just community. We will not make it right now. We will not make it. We've never been able to make it without community. 2 are better than 1, it says in Ecclesiastes, because they have a better reward for their labor. If one falls down, there's somebody there that can pick them up again. Who is in your corner that can pick you up? They won't know to pick you up if you don't tell the truth. We are having an epidemic in this nation and in the world of suicide, of fear. Like I said, there's been a tsunami of grief. We got to get real about that. And don't let fear do the talking. Let faith do the talking. But sometimes you need someone to speak faith to you when you forget how to do it. You need someone to sing a song over you when you forget the melody. We need those people. I would never have made it without safe people. And thank God for my marriage. But my world of relationship is much bigger than my marriage. People that I trust, that can see me, that'll call me out if I need to be. Tell me I'm out of line, but tell me that with a spirit of grace that covers me and helps me do better. Not to shame me or to shun me, but to come alongside me. We all need them, but it's going to take authentic living. And then the sixth point, and I'll go through this quickly, one of the key things in this last season of my life. For some of you, it's been the most chaotic in the sense of your time has been crazy. Mine's been the opposite. I was running hard all the time, running here and there, going hard and doing a lot. And I felt fulfilled, but suddenly when everything came to a screeching halt, I realized that here at 65 years of age, last year I was 65, I realized I had not established all the healthy rhythms that I could. And I became very intentional about practices of prayer. And yes, I would pray and read my Bible, but I just got way more intentional, not just praying, so get my prayer done, but just walking with God and talking with God and listening to God. I established a Sabbath. That is a biblical mandate, where I actually turned my phone off and just leaned into God for those 24 hours. God rested on the seventh day. God who was worked for 6 and rested on the seventh. God who what he was building was perfect. Who are we to think, I'll just keep going. I just need to keep going. If God stopped and rested on the seventh day, I think we have something to learn. It's very arrogant, I think. Oops, that's Mama Helen coming out. But it's arrogant to think that the world can't get on if I step and just spend a day replenishing. I feel like church, have healthy practices. Your family needs it. Your marriage needs it. If you need it, as single people, married people, whatever season of life you're in, you need healthy practices. And I have learned them in this season. And the last thing I just want to share is don't stop dreaming. Dream crazy big God dreams, ridiculous dreams. I already shared that with you, but I believe God is leading us somewhere we haven't been before. And the Bible teaches us it's impossible to please God without faith. But where is your faith right now? How has it been activated? What is God asking you to step into that feels wild and crazy? Let's go. Let's engage. Let's live with intention. 2 people in my life passed away in recent months. Very close. One was my best friend in the whole world of 35 years. Got hit by a car. He was in a hurry, ran a red light, and T-boned her and broke many bones in her body, and we thought she was recovering, but one day, 10 days after, she threw a clot and was gone in a minute. My heart broke, absolutely broke. She was living her best life and had just retired. She was working on staff with us for 27 years, and we had just celebrated her, and she was in a whole new season, and she was gone. The other one is a young man who's like one of my grandsons. He was playing for the Edmonton for the farm team. He was just 16. Actually, he just would have been 17 now, but when he was 16, was out and about, 3 kids in a car. Somebody just got a brand new car for his birthday, and he was driving way too fast. 3 teenagers killed in a minute. One of them was Caleb Reimer. He was playing for the Oil Kings, and his service, John did both the services. They were both incredibly impactful. Caleb had more. Not only was we had to hire a huge venue for him, and then over 5,000 people watched his service of a 16-year-old online. It was pretty powerful. And it's funny, everyone's saying, see you later, big guy, see you later. And John had a lot of courage to step up and say, will you? How do you know you'll see Caleb? Caleb lived for Jesus. But if you're not living life with intention, with kingdom purpose in mind, and it took a lot of courage for John to do that. And he really got hit hard. The enemy told you, it didn't sound very nice, but he thought all these kids, all these young hockey players needed to know. Everyone needed to know. Teach us to number our days that we'll live with a heart of wisdom. Linda lived the most beautiful life of anyone I've ever known. And I got to have her as my best friend. But she lived an intentional life. Caleb lived an intentional life. And whether you live to your 71 or 16, life is short. And if we don't live it with intention, we will miss this opportunity. I want to encourage you, church. Don't waste another day. Don't be on hold. Don't take your foot off the gas. Just let's keep going and live the life that God has called us to and destined us to. It's a beautiful life. It's a hard life sometimes. It's complicated. But live with intention. And it all starts with Jesus. That's where it begins. Truthfully, that's where it ends. Amen. I love you, church. Let me pray for you. Father, I thank you for every amazing person in this room and their hearts. God, would you come alongside them in this moment? God, would you just come as the comforter and lead them in these moments, God, as they walk into the days ahead. Father, would you just kiss them with favor and kiss them with your love? And let them know how very precious each one of them is in your heart and in your hands. I bless each one, each and every one in the days ahead. God, I pray that this year will end. 2021 will end gloriously. Maybe not perfectly, but gloriously, as we choose to live for your purpose. In Jesus' name, amen.